Have you ever felt paralyzed by the need for certainty? I have. I've been reading this book called Fear and Trembling by Søren Kierkegaard, and he talks about this feeling of angst, or the anxiety of freedom, where we're presented with so many choices and options, we just feel overwhelmed by it. So unlike fear, which is directed at something external, angst is something internal. It's an internal battle that we all have to struggle with, of this conflict of ambiguity and uncertainty. So life is full of it. But Kierkegaard argues that we have to take this leap of faith. It's a metaphor for making choices when we face this doubt and uncertainty. This leap doesn't have to be religious at all, but for any significant life decision, it is something where we have to draw courage to act upon. So you don't have to be ready to begin, but you do have to begin for you to be ready. I recently started learning how to top rope. I've been rock climbing for a bit, but this is something new for me. So the past 2.5 years, I've been bouldering. So this is climbing without ropes. I've only been doing it in a gym, and now I want to take my talents to try something new and push myself even further, which is top roping. So the way I like to describe it, it's kind of like sprints versus marathons. Bouldering is quite sprint-like, where it's shorter but more explosive, but top roping is similar to a marathon and long distance running, where you're climbing greater heights, but they tend to be easier, but it's just longer and more endurance based. So in this video, I want to share what rock climbing has done for me and how it taught me to take these leap of faith, to be bold and be courageous in moments of uncertainty and doubt, and hopefully help you figure those moments out too. So the first principle I have is nobody cares. When you're just starting off, the truth is nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to you as much as you're paying attention to yourself. Because the truth is, we're all so self-centered that we only care about ourselves. This perfectionism and fear is just attacking us inside our heads. In reality, most people really are thinking about themselves. So the sooner you let go of this illusion, the sooner you realize that starting, even if imperfectly, is better than not starting at all. So I'm on my own YouTube journey, and I've been looking at my favorite creators on how they've been starting off their YouTube journeys, just for inspiration for me too. So one of the creators I've been following is Chris Williamson from the Modern Wisdom podcast. I really enjoy his intellectual discussions, and he's been doing this for 6 years now. So when I go back to his YouTube channel and see his first video podcasts, they're definitely subpar from where he is today. He mentioned in interviews too that when he was first starting out, he felt so many insecurities about just not being perfect enough. And I totally related to that. That's so cool that even he himself, who I idolize, was still trying to figure things out. He didn't see himself having this top 10 podcast in the world 6 years later, or even doing it full time at all. He was just curious to interview a lot of intellectual people and have these intellectual discussions. He criticized himself a lot. And one of the ways he criticized himself was just his frequent uses of He would say that quite a lot. Not so much anymore because he got it out of his vocabulary. But it was because he started something that he was able to get something out there in the world and have this momentum build up. This fear of judgment that he had was all internal. Like when you go back to his old videos, they're actually quite nice. They provide a lot of value. And just as the audience, there wasn't anything too glaringly wrong with what he was putting out there. So the next time that you're starting something new, whether it's a hobby or a relationship or a career, nobody cares at the beginning of it. We are all beginners. We're going to make mistakes and nobody cares. I remember, at least for climbing, that it was a little scary where everyone's just kind of waiting at the walls, seeing who's going to climb next. So we're all in line because, we have to take one person at a time climbing a wall. And for me waiting in line, I am watching someone climb their route. And secretly inside, I'm cheering them on. I want them to succeed, but I also want to figure out how they tackle the problems as well. So it's really cool for me to see them figure something out in real time. Hopefully, when it comes my turn, I can figure it out and show it off to everyone else. When I go up on that wall, I find out that people don't really care. Most people, they're kind of just chilling, chit-chatting with other friends, and just waiting for me to finish. They're not analyzing my every little move to judge me when I come down the wall. They really aren't. So When you're just starting off, just let aside the perfectionism because nobody cares. The next principle I have is find your courage. So you may have heard this already, but courage is not the absence of fear. It's stepping up and moving forward despite the presence of fear. So nothing embodies this more than the concept of the leap of faith. It's this moment where you're standing on the edge, uncertain of the outcome. You choose to trust in yourself and the process and do it anyway. So whether it's a new venture, relationship, or personal goal, this leap of faith requires you to be courageous. It's so scary because you can't see anything in the future. You don't know what's going to happen. You just have to do it. So going back to Kierkegaard, because he talks about this a lot. In his book, Fear and Trembling, he discusses the story of Abraham. So he's the father of the Abrahamic religions in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I'm coming with a Christian perspective because I'm a Christian. So he's asked by God to sacrifice his son Isaac. And Abraham's faith requires him to act without the full understanding of why is God asking me to kill my only son. So this act of faith, taken in the face of profound uncertainty, is emblematic of Kierkegaard's belief that sometimes we have to make decisions and take action despite not having all the knowledge or assurances that we desire. So when it comes to faith, we can take this in two ways. So one is the philosophical way. The philosophical definition of faith goes as this. Faith is believing or acting without reason. That's simple, that's explanatory. Why would you kill your only son? But there's a second way that we can take this, which is the theological definition. It is the definition of faith is the assurance of things to come. So I take this from Hebrews 11. So that's where the theological basis comes from. With the philosophical way, Abraham had the moral dilemma of he had to trust God over trusting in his own son. Otherwise, all in all, because there's no reason in it, he's just simply murdering his son. But the second way is Abraham knew something was up. It was quite paradoxical because if you look in the Bible or the Torah, whether you're Jew or Quran, if you're Muslim, God told Abraham that he'd be a father of many nations. So going way back when Abraham and his wife Sarah, they were like 90 or 100. Apparently people in these times lived for a very long time, but they were very old, he and his wife. And they were asking God like, when am I going to get a son? And especially Sarah, because she is 90 years old. She knows she is way past her prime. And God told them that I will make you a father of many nations. You're going to have so many descendants. You're going to have so many riches and lands. Just trust in me. And they both were like, all right, we trusted you. And even though they trusted in him, they still failed. Like Abraham one time lied to other people to protect his life, because he feared they wanted his wife, Sarah. But anyway, God was using the story of imperfect people to tell this perfect story. Now comes the time in Genesis 22 where God told Abraham that he had to kill his son. Abraham is thinking that, there is a paradox. God is telling me to kill my son, but it's also through my son that I'm going to have many descendants. So what's up with that? God's definitely testing me. And so he tells himself that there could be a resurrection that's happening, or God's going to do something so profound. So I have to do it. That's where he takes this knife and tries to kill Isaac. But then an angel of the Lord suddenly stopped him, and he sacrificed a baby goat that just happened to be there. But it's through this act of faith that Abraham was rewarded many descendants and many riches in his life. It was through this paradox that he saw that God promised him something, and he's got to stick with it. Even though God told him this seemingly contradictory thing, he just had to take this leap of faith and do it. Whether you're planning on moving to another city, taking a new career path, or starting a new relationship with someone, just do it. Just do it. Because you don't know what's going to happen. But when you do, I think everything starts falling into itself. And I remember for me, I haven't moved in a while, but when I was still living in San Diego as a college student, I knew that I wanted to live in a big city. I wanted to go to New York City at the time because there's so much more opportunity there. But at the same time, I didn't really have a plan on how I was going to live there. But I was talking with my dad, and he really was trying to persuade me to come back home to San Jose. So he brought me to my grandparents' graves, and I was just looking at my grandparents and just thinking about the sacrifices that they made to get me to where I am today. They started off in Vietnam, but I'm here just looking at them and thinking to myself, I have to succeed. That was when I made the leap of faith to go back home. I was afraid I was going to revert back to my old San Jose self from 0 to 18, where I felt very introverted, confined, and didn't know what to do in life. I trusted in God. I trusted in Him as my provider, and I knew that I'm just a new man living in San Diego. At 23 years old, I definitely changed a lot. So I was bringing back my new mindset because I knew how to find new friends again. I knew that I wanted to go to the beach and surf a lot. I knew I still had to continually try new hobbies as well and see the great outdoors, which San Jose had. So I took the leap of faith and moved back home. And it was the best thing ever because I got closer to my parents and my siblings because of that. Had I moved off to New York on my own, that would have been selfish of me. And I'd still probably would have made new friends, but life wouldn't be as full as it is now because I made the leap of faith to come back home. That goes for you. I think if you got that big thing on your mind, just do it. Take that leap of faith. It feels so scary, but everything's going to come through because of it. So the next principle I have is to iterate based on market demands. So one of my favorite quotes is, "You either win or you learn," by Nelson Mandela. A common theme of starting before you know how is experiential learning. Many creators stress that the most effective way to learn and grow is by just diving into the deep end, making mistakes, and learning from it. And this approach is so much faster and more practical for knowledge compared to theoretical preparation. Startup founders do this, and I'm going to use the Silicon Valley example because the Silicon Valley loves rock climbing, and I'm going to use Slack, for example. Slack, everyone knows it, is this internal communication channel used for businesses. But most people don't know about it is when it first started off. It was used as this communication platform for a game. The game itself, it didn't take off whatsoever, but Slack saw the need for an internal communication and it pitched itself towards businesses. And throughout that time, they started getting feedback from people. They started getting feedback on just how things worked. Like, hey, can I get DMs better through this? Can I send emojis through that? Or can we have group chats where we talk about dogs? And they started just adding these things in based on what people said. One by one, they started putting their product out there and getting the feedback back to them and started to grow that way. That's what I'm learning too, just as a human being, that I need to put myself out there, just like rock climbing, that by putting myself on more routes, I learn to adapt myself into who I am and what I can do as a person because the routes mold me into who I am. And I have found that it's not just the routes, but people who pour into me make me into who I am today. When I'm navigating through uncertainty, I look towards others. I look towards others such as my coaches. I have an executive assistant coach, a business coach, and an executive coach, but he's more my spiritual director. And it's through these people that I go to them, telling them about my ideas and plans. Like, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel. What do you guys think? And them telling me, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And then showing them the YouTube channel and like, hey, you're not doing this correctly. Can you add better titles? Can you add better thumbnails? So I started adding that and getting the feedback that I needed. So the same goes for you too, is once you started something, this new relationship or this new business, continually put yourself out there and get the feedback. When you're dating someone, you're going to get feedback, but you have to be aware of it and improve upon it. When you're having this new job, you're going to do some things wrong and make some mistakes, but you'll get that feedback and improve upon it and you can do better. So the lesson is clear as we're adapting. It's an iterative process to continually put ourselves out there, but we learn and learn and learn and move forward because of it. The fourth principle I have is not stopping is the key to winning. So another key point is the importance of momentum. Taking this first step, even if it's small or imperfect, creates a sense of progress that can be moved forward. Starting before you know how builds this momentum, which leads to more significant achievements down the line. So one of my favorite interviews of all time is Kobe Bryant's interview with Lewis Howes on his School of Greatness podcast. He was reflecting on what made him such a great basketball player. So when Kobe was age 13, he was at this basketball summer camp, and he recalls scoring 0 points that entire summer, which is pretty wild, but it motivated him. He wanted to do better. So he was thinking to himself, to be better, it's simple math. That if I train 3 times a day and they trained 1 time a day, I'm clearly going to get more practices in. So he did that. By the end of the entire summer, he practiced so much. By age 16, he became one of the top basketball players in the nation because he put the hours in. Imagine someone having 10,000 hours of basketball played versus 5,000 hours played. The 10,000 hours guy played twice as much as the other guy. Of course he's going to win. So in the interview, Kobe emphasized what made the practices enjoyable, because 3 times a day is still gnarly. He talked about his love for basketball. He loved it. He wasn't chasing the success. He wasn't chasing greatness. He was chasing basketball. And it was just great. He learned that greatness wasn't something that you're born with. It's something you earn by putting this consistent, deliberate work in it. Nowadays, most people know Kobe's work ethic as the Mamba mentality. And that's something I want to encourage all of us to have. Me, you, to put in this relentless work, to put in the hours so that we show up and exercise our courage muscle. Because by the time this big life decision happens, we'll be ready for it. For me, it's practicing building up courage. When I was out surfing 2 weeks ago, I saw a girl surfing that I really liked, but I was just overthinking to myself that, man, how do I talk to her? Yada, yada, yada. She's really pretty. And I just got too over in my head. And by the time the surfing session was over, we never saw each other again, which sucks. And I'm just thinking that I should have just talked to her. But that's where I'm working on being better myself, is practicing and starting talking to more ladies and not stopping practicing and talking to more ladies, because I need to get into practice with flirting the world. Charlie Houpert from Charisma on Command tells this concept, and he uses Russell Brand as an example of just talking to strangers and being flirtatious with everyone and making them feel good, because it helps you get in the zone, be that person that everyone wants to hang around with. And that's how you truly find your ideal partner. So I need to do that. This is kind of me rambling in the video of holding myself accountable, because I am a single person and I eventually want to settle down and find a wife. But it includes that practice. Once you start talking to that stranger, once you start talking to multiple strangers, just don't stop. You're going to keep finding opportunities for yourself to succeed. So the same goes for you. Whether you too are out in the dating world, trying to build your own business. So not stopping is the key to success. Like Chris Williamson pumped out 3 episodes a week for 6 years, got up to 800 episodes, and became one of the top podcasts in the world. So hopefully for me too, I can pump out these YouTube videos. I can continue to talk to ladies. Life can only be understood backwards. It's ironically only moved forwards. In the end, this journey to success, whether in life, career, or even something as personal, trying to date, it's not about having all the answers from the start. It's about having the courage to take this next step. So we have to embrace the uncertainty around us and take that leap of faith. To go out and talk to that stranger that you have a crush on. To try that new hobby or start that business. Because we don't know what opportunities lies before us. The biggest regrets we have are the actions we do not take. Go ahead, take that leap of faith. And these leap of faith are just going to help you start your success journey. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed listening. If you're interested in hearing more about how this can apply to your own personal life, you can click on the link down below, which will take you to my application form to schedule a time between us, and I want to provide you a free coaching call to help you out. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.